Hi, everyone. We're going to give it a couple minutes and then we'll begin.
Courtney, are we still on hold then?
Nope, we are live. All right, we're going to get started. Thank you for joining us today. We have Brian Geary here conducting a training on Foster 2A hydraulic QD profiles. If you have any questions during the webinar, please use the question feature and we'll go over all of your questions and comments during the wrap-up section at the end. So without further ado, I'll pass it over to Brian.
Great, thanks Courtney. Appreciate everybody taking time here on a Friday afternoon to join the webinar. Once again, my name is Brian Geary. I am a Midwest Regional Sales Manager here. Today we're going to be going over the two-way hydraulic quick disconnects. But before we get going, figured I'd share a couple of memes I've come across over the last few weeks. Not sure anybody was actively looking to go out and find the coronavirus, but obviously some of us were. And when I took a look at this, virus vodka does actually exist. And here's another guy that met a family member he wasn't aware that was living with him. And the last one is somebody found something in their bomb shelter that looked like it could help them out get through the virus. But in any event, why are you here? Maybe you're somebody who said this is mandatory training for you, or maybe you're on the other side of the spectrum and you couldn't help but volunteer to be a part of any webinar that was going to be going on out there. But whatever the reason, we appreciate you joining. And as we get going here, I'd like to do a quick poll. So Courtney, if you could go ahead and start the first poll, please. And the first poll is, what is your level of quick disconnect knowledge? And just a couple of quick things here. So got some good answers coming in. We got about 40% voted there. We'll wait a couple more seconds for some more answers to come in. Great, and go ahead and close that out. We got about 64% of the folks who have answered there. And as I thought we would have folks across the board. So this presentation will hopefully address everybody's level here. And no matter what that level is, whether you're just getting started or you're a little bit more seasoned, there's two things that I hope I can get across to you is, wow, that's something I didn't know, or hey, here's that little piece of information that'll help me sell the quick disconnects as I'm getting in front of customers. So with that, the agenda we're going to have today is a very quick, brief overview of the Ideal Trident Group. If you're looking for more detail on that, there was a separate webinar that was conducted. I invite you to listen to that. We'll be going over the quick disconnects and the basics with the QDs, the most common types, how to identify the QDs. We'll go over some of the applications, how and where to sell. We'll talk about the resources available to you to help support that. And we'll end up with some questions. And once again, over the right-hand side of your screen, there's an area to add in some questions. We'll address those at the end, but please go ahead and send those over to us at any time. So the Ideal Trident Group, you may recognize some of this branding out there, but it's a full group of companies comprised of different products that sell into the same types of markets. These products can be worm gears, obviously the quick disconnect, specialty clamps, fastening solutions, and they go in a variety of different markets, really just about every market that's out there for the most part. And all these products are driven by innovation, quality, and service. And the headquarters for the Ideal Trident Group is in Smyrna, Tennessee, which is just outside of Nashville, as well as we have other locations in North America and across the globe. 1913 was the beginning of the Ideal Triadin Group. Over the years, we've had a number of acquisitions, as well as opening up of manufacturing facilities. Specific to ZSI Foster, ZSI Foster acquired Brico in 2010, and the ZSI Foster Group became part of Ideal Triadin just in the middle of last year of 2019 is when we were acquired. If you're not familiar with your regional sales manager, we have folks covering the US and Canada. Feel free to reach out to them at any time. And this presentation is going to be available to you, so no need to jot down notes frantically here. This will be sent out to you. So if you're not familiar with your RSM, you'll have this resource for you. Customer service and inside sales, April Gordon leads the team with Christina Burnett, Diane Moore on our technical side, and we have the general contact information for Foster there on the bottom. And the difference between Foster and Brico. So the Foster product line is made in the USA. It's manufactured and assembled out of our Springfield, Missouri plant, and that facility and the products with Foster have certifications associated with it. The Brico brand is our non-domestic manufactured product line. Has some of the same product standards with ISO and mil specs, and it's the economical alternative to the Foster when you get into those price-sensitive situations. Certification: the Springfield, Missouri plant is an ISO 9001 plant, and the FHK and the FST product lines are CRN certified or Canadian Registered Number certified. So why use a quick disconnect? What's the purpose of it? Well, it's simply a way to connect and disconnect a hose line quickly. Provides minimal fluid loss and air inclusion or air entering into a system. It's a quick way to assemble equipment. So for instance, on OEM or large manufacturing plants. It allows for routine service, maintenance, and repair. And be aware that different quick disconnects are used for hydraulic and pneumatic applications. And a quick example of a QD application here is on a skid steer, where on the front of the skid steer you see a panel of quick disconnects. In this case, they're flat face. And an attachment would have mating quick disconnects on the end of those hydraulic lines, so you can quickly connect and disconnect the attachment out in the field. A couple of different types of quick disconnects out there. They're valved and non-valve designed. Pneumatics are typically referred to as one-way. Hydraulics are two-way, even though some hydraulic couplings can be single valved or no valved, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in some of the successive slides, and they're used in special applications. Metal quick disconnects, typically used in challenging environments where there's lots of shock, vibration, high pressures, temperature challenges, personal safety, durability, and strength requirements in there. So let's go over some of the basics in the makeup of the quick disconnects. First part we'll talk about is the insert or the male part of it. You can see an actual quick disconnect there on the bottom, and then a rendering there in some of the common names that are used in the marketplace for the male part. Not an exclusive list here, but some of the more common. On the female part or the socket, you can see that there as well. The most common way for the plug and the socket to be retained together is by the use of locking mechanisms, or the locking balls is what's shown here. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. And then the valving. So both the plug and the valve are, or excuse me, the plug and the socket are valved in this picture, and you can see where that's pointing to there. So the valves are part of the couplings. Non-valve couplings are typically used in high flow requirements or high flow applications where leakage is not necessarily a concern. But remember, anything that's going across a valve with media or some type of flow, as it goes past a valve, it has pressure drop. That valve causes a restriction or interference with the flow and will have some type of pressure drop that goes across it. So a common question is, hey, with the QD, what's the pressure drop across it? And we do have that information published for you for typical applications. So to talk about more specifically the locking mechanisms, we talked about the locking balls. Picture here of the locking balls in the socket, and you can see them there in the square. They're used to mechanically lock the plug to the socket. The reason why it's used, just an easy way to connect most commonly used style out there for the QDs. But be aware that that socket can trap dirt and it can hold fluid that will trap the dirt. And when you bring the plug back together with the socket, that could potentially introduce that into the system. Very heavy vibrations can cause the locking balls to be exposed to a condition called Brunelling. Brunelling is basically the wearing on the plug side or wearing on the socket side that causes it to become loose as the metal to metal contact vibrates. Flat face couplings also use a locking ball mechanism, but it's internal, or you can't see it from the outside of the quick disconnect itself. The design on this is easy to wipe clean, but be aware that the spring forces for the flat face are higher, so they're a little bit more forced to connect, as well as they could be a little bit more difficult to align. Screw to connect locking mechanism, exactly what it says. You have threads on both the socket and the plug side of it, commonly used on high pressure applications, even though some high pressure applications can use locking ball styles as well. The negatives to the screw to connect takes a little bit longer to put together, right? So they're used in the they're also used a little bit more in the heavier, robust applications where guys will walk around with hammers. They'll drop them on the ground. So because they're bigger and heavier, people think, well, it's more durable, which it is, but they take quite a bit more abuse as well. Two-way quick disconnects, the hydraulic series. There's the FHK and the DS, which are both ISO 7241-1 Series B, or commonly known in the industry as ISO B style couplings. 6600 series, commonly known as the ISO A style coupling. The FH and the FIH, known as the Snap Tight, the 4000 series, commonly known as the Pioneer. You'll see the FF Plus and the FF series, which are ISO 16028. Commonly known as the FVEP, is a screw to connect flat face, high pressure. The W series, commonly known as the Enerpack out in the marketplace, and the 6100 series, commonly known as the wing nut. So can you tell the difference between all 8 of these, and what are the competitive differentiators out there? And those are the things we're going to go through here. So for those of you who 43% that said, 18% that said I got this down pat in the survey that started off. Hopefully you can identify most of these. If you can't, my hope is by the end of this presentation, everybody will be able to take a quick look at this and say, oh yeah, that's the ISO A, that's the flat face screw to connect. So we'll get going on some of these. The ISO B series, the FHK series for Foster, is clearly marked on the external part of the parts for the socket and the plug with a part number and our manufacturing name on it. You can see an example of part numbers for the sockets and plugs. I'm not going to go into detail on that, but it's there. Variety of different types of materials. LV for less valve, VA for valve actuator. So there's applications where you would remove a valve as well as you would need something to open up the associated valve on the other side of the part. So that's the VA. A dash at the end would designate a different type of seal that would go in there. Ball lock, or a BL designation, indicates a machine groove in the sleeve, and we have this ball that is in the socket itself. And you can see here when it's aligned, if you pull that sleeve back, you would be able to connect and disconnect this socket and plug together. If you rotate this sleeve just slightly, we have a mechanical interference here because the groove doesn't line up. That prevents disconnect, accidental disconnect, if this thing's being dragged on the ground, but that's the purpose of the ball lock there. Interchanges with other ISO Bs, available up to 1 inch in size, pressures up to 5,000 PSI. Keep in mind that 1 inch side for a successive slide here on the size range. And with all of our quick disconnects, dust plugs or dust caps. And we talked about getting contamination into the system. Dust caps are a nice way to keep that contamination off of the plug, off of the socket, provides additional value add sell to your customers, as well as it's a nice bump. It's a little bit more to the sale that you can add, and it typically has some pretty good margin for you guys as well. So keep dust plugs in mind, because you're going to hear more about those as we go through the presentation. The DS series is Brico's version of the ISO-B, once again clearly marked on the outside. Some more examples here of the part numbers for both the socket and the plug. Made in a variety of different types of materials: steel, brass, stainless. Interchanges with all other ISO-Bs, up to 2.5 in size. So if you remember from the Foster product line, we're up to 1 inch. The Brico line does go up to 2.5 inch, so pretty good size there. 5,000 PSI, and you're going to start to see a theme. Don't forget the dust caps. So the FHK series, let's take a little bit deeper look at it, since it's the most common out there, the one that we need to be most familiar with. And what I've done is I've put some representations here of a plug going into a socket. And then we also have a rendering here of the plug in the socket. Even though the valve isn't shown, this would have a valve in it, and how that looks when they're actually connected together. The distinguishing features to know you're looking at an ISO-B versus an ISO-A is this, the distance of the entry here going from the top of the valve into this recess. And this recess right across here is where the locking balls will physically attach with the socket. So that is the retention area from the plug and the socket joining together. In this entrance journal, you'll see the long distance there. To take a look at a cutaway of what this thing looks like actually connected, we'll start over here with, this is the plug. And if you follow along with the laser pointer, this is the edge of the plug. And then we come here and we have the two tops of the valves that, when connected, are pushing against each other and are opened up for material flow through both the socket and the plug. The socket here on the sleeve, you can see the start of the sleeve goes from here over. So whether material is flowing from the socket to plug or plug to socket, you can see it goes past here. This is the valve. This is a valve guide. This is a stem. Here are our locking balls. On the inside of the sleeve, you see the ball, and then that's up here against this recessed journal right here. That's that recessed journal right there. And material would flow here. It would go past. There's a space here in this seal where that opens up, and material would flow all the way through. So I've also included some additional detailed descriptions here that you can read through once you receive the presentation. But that's pretty much the inside or the guts of what the ISO-B series looks like, and that'll look very similar for the ISO-A as well as some of the other couplings. So the FHK series and competitive advantages. Larger locking ball contact area, and we'll talk about that in a little bit more detail in just a second. Published 27 inches of mercury rated vacuum. None of our competitors out there publish a vacuum rating, and a standard heavy spring on this series where our competitors typically make that an option. It's available, but it's not part of their standard part. You can see the contact area here of the locking ball mechanism as it is up against the mating metal material. What this allows for is greater wear resistance and longer life. Every application is going to have some element of vibration, some element of impulse to it. Provides for a longer life, where on competitive product, you can see it's more of a point contact. So over time, you may see competitive products start to get a little sloppy or loose in the application, where the larger contact area for the Foster product allows for longer life. Once again, on the vacuum, we published that, no published performance data from competitors, and our standard spring being a heavier version of it. What that allows for is those valves to close quicker and hold tighter when opened and closed, where our competitors make you pay a little bit additional for that. So moving on to the ISO-A series, this is also manufactured by Brico, but the 6600 series ISO-A. B- for Brico in the part number. It is a steel zinc plated product. interchanges with other ISO-A's out in the marketplace. You'll see the sizes 1/4 inch to 1 inch and up to 5,000 PSI. But you can see here from the internal drawing, looks very similar. You have your springs, you have your valves, you have your locking balls. So the internal valving is going to be very similar to the ISO-B. And once again, dust caps available for this line. For the FH and the FIH series, commonly known as Snap Tight H out in the marketplace, we have this product is manufactured to a mil spec, a mil C 51234, and that design allows for higher flows within this coupling. And we'll take a look at the internals on it in just a second. S&P for the designations of the socket and plug, and an example of the part number there. Manufactured in steel and brass. You can see the size range is a little bit smaller, and we can see that the pressure ratings aren't quite as high as ISO-A and ISO-B. And the FH series is the two-way, where both the socket and the plug are valved or unvalved. The FIH series is a unvalved plug with a valved socket. So where applications where high flow is required, but spillage is not a concern, or they're controlling the flow someplace else when you disconnect the QDs, you can do unvalved versions of the H series. And wouldn't you guess it, there's dust caps available. So to take a look at what the valve design is compared to the ISO-A, you can see the features here that this is more of a cross design. And on the plug, we have this tubular end on it. So that actually pushes against here and opens up the valves, but you can see the internals here to the Snap Tight H series is much different than it is on the ISO-A and the ISO-B series. The 4000 series, commonly known as the Pioneer. This is a Brico product. You can see the examples of the part numbers there. And this one has a steel ball check valve for the socket and the plug. And you can see that down here in the design. You have the ball, you have the spring on both sides, and it's metal to metal contact for your sealing there. Because of that valve design, fewer components, not as heavily machined, it's a more economical solution. It's used more in construction, ag, and steel mills. The product range is 1/4 inch up to 1 inch. You'll notice that the pressures on this are only up to 3,000 PSI. And because of that valve design, the ball check valve design, you may see these out in the marketplace with leakage and weeping, on farm equipment and ag. You'll see a lot of these things leaking and weeping out there. Very easy for contamination to get in between that ball valve and just cause leak paths. And it wouldn't be a slide without getting dust caps in there. So you may be asking yourself, so when I'm looking at this, is it FHK? Is it 6600 series? The H series and the 4000 series, yeah, I think I can tell the difference between these two, but could you tell the difference between the ISO-A and the ISO-B? Well, I wanted to put together a quick side-by-side comparison to reiterate on the ISO-B, this entrance piece of material on the plug down to the socket, or excuse me, down to the recess where the locking balls on the socket meet, versus the ISO-A. It's much shorter distance. You have a little pronounced feature here before you get to the area where the locking balls meet on the plug. But that's the main way to tell the difference between the ISO-A and the ISO-B. And the side-by-side comparison is something you should use for future reference to help you make that differentiation. Also included on the slide, I wanted to put the H series on there. You can see that there is quite a difference here in the style, in the design of the plug, and obviously the way that this valve is, you'll be able to see that difference here from the top versus the way the valve looks here. And then lastly, the 4000 series, which should be easily identifiable with that ball check up on the top. So time for another poll. So I'm doing some searching on the internet to have another picture up here to start another poll, and I came across this and I said, what in the heck is this? Well, if anybody's familiar with this, you're better than I am. I had to look it up, but this is called Gastra, and it originated in the country of Malta, which is in the Mediterranean Sea, just south of Italy. And the idea here is to run across about a 30-foot length of pole that's greased. You can see the grease at the end of it. And to get to the end and grab the flag, and this is hanging over some type of water in the sea or the ocean or whatever it is. And you see that you have to do a lot of physical training to be a part of this and be in top condition. But I found this interesting to use on the slide. So Gostra is the name of this. So Courtney, if you wouldn't mind, go ahead and start the next poll for us, please.
So the poll kind of crashed on me, so I'm going to read it to you and I'll read the answers, and then everyone can think of their answers, and then Brian will reveal the correct one. So sorry about that.
Gotcha.
The question is, what are the main advantages of Foster FHK series over the competition? A, more contact surface of the locking balls. B, published vacuum pressure rating. C, standard heavy valve spring. Or D, all of the above. So think about your answer. Obviously, keep it to yourself, and then Brian will reveal what's correct.
Yep, and through mental telepathy, I feel all the answers coming in. I don't see anybody answering in the top three. It looks like everybody's going with all the above. So appreciate you reading that out, Courtney. Yeah, more contact surface area on the locking balls, published vacuum pressure that our competition does not offer, the published data, and standard heavy valve springs are all standard in the FHK series. So competitive advantages for the FHK series. So moving on to the flat face product. So these will be the last four in that series of 8 that we talked about for 2 ways. FF Plus and Connect Under Pressure. This is made to an ISO 16028 standard. It is a Foster product. You can see the examples of the part numbers there. The key takeaway here for the FS Plus series is zinc nickel plated. So why is that important? It comes in 2 materials. Zinc nickel plated is our standard. 316 stainless is an option. But the salt spray results on zinc nickel plate will get you up to 1,200 hours before you're getting to white rust. Trivalent chrome, you can see here at 24 hours, you're already starting to get some white rust. 96 hours, white and red rust present as you start to go on. I'm not even sure these are functional at this point, but you can see the difference between a zinc nickel plate versus trivalent. And obviously stainless would survive very well there, but zinc nickel plated is a standard for that. Minimal air inclusion and fluid loss, even better than what you see in the ISO A and ISO B because of the flat valve design and the heavier spring pressures that are associated with flat face type product. Connect under limited residual pressure. So standard product will connect up to 2000 PSI. May take you a little bit more force to connect it, but it'll connect under up to 200 PSI with the standard product. Connect under pressure. Residual pressure for higher ratings can be done by changing out from the standard plug to a connect under pressure plug. And this can be seen here with a standard plug. You can see that plug design, and then you can see the additional length in the plug here where you have some internal pressure relief features that allow you to connect the plug to a residual pressure socket up to 5,075 PSI. And that's available in 1/4 inch up to 3/4 inch sizes. So connect under pressure with a special plug up to 5,075 PSI, connect under limited residual pressure with the rest of the product line. You can see the full size of the product line there and the pressure ratings that it goes up to. And once again, don't forget the dust plugs. The FF series, 16028 by Brico. You can see the examples of the part numbers. ISO 16028, like we talked about. HTMA, the Hydraulic Tool Manufacturers Association, with the 3A size. Hand tools, hydraulic hand tools, typically use a 3A size across industry standard, and that specifies flow direction that are going on with the plug in the socket there, and an FPA that meets dimensional and performance criteria. This is a trivalent chrome plated product. So make sure that we're getting this into the right application where corrosion resistance may not be a concern. We certainly would not want to put this in a heavy caustic or salt environment because at 96 hours, it's going to be in trouble. Minimal air inclusion and fluid loss, again, because of the flat face design, the size range up to 1 inch, 5,000 PSI, and of course we have dust plugs available. The FVEP series, screw to connect. This is this is screw to connect high pressure. Once again, examples of the part numbers for you. Zinc nickel plated on this one, so up to 1,200 hours to red and white rust. Connect and disconnect under residual pressure, 5,000 PSI. So this standard product line can't connect and disconnect under pressure up to 5,000 PSI, 5,075. The orange seal is there as a visual indicator for when you screw the socket to the plug. Once that socket sleeve completely covers the orange seal, you're fully connected and you have your valves both fully open. So visual indicator there with that orange seal. And you can see the size ranges there up to 1.25 inches and the pressure ratings getting close to 8,000 PSI. The W series or Enerpack, steel zinc plated, thread to connect with metal to metal sealing. And the metal to metal sealing here is, as you can see, to a coined seat. So it's a more sophisticated design on the coined seat on how the valves are hitting each other and creating the seal. There's also a polyurethane or PU body seal in there. Interchanges with other Enerpack style couplings out there, 1/4 inch to 3/8, kind of a limited size on this, but the reason why is because it's a 10,000 PSI coupling. So you're not using 10,000 PSIs at inch and a half. It's 1/4 inch to 3/8, just a couple of small sizes there. Typically used on hydraulic tools, rams, and cylinders. So, you know, think of the jaws of life. That'll be a very high pressure hydraulic application that would be used in an Enerpack type quick disconnect, or lifting cylinders if somebody's lifting a house where they need high pressures, but they're used on small hydraulic lines. So again, we have dust caps available. And the 6100 series or the wing nut series. Heavy duty, very heavy duty bodies on the socket and the plug, and you can see it's got a very robust wing nut there. It's manufactured out of a brass body, zinc wing nut, and stainless steel springs. Connect and disconnect under pressure. Vane valve guide, and the swage valve seal, which we'll talk a little bit more about in a minute. Bulkhead flange mount available. Common industry interchange, you see a wide variety of sizes and up to 3,000 PSI. And of course, we have dust caps. The internals of this is, we're looking at the plug here. This is the vane valve guide. And you can see that here in this design provides for some improved performance and flow. And this is our swaged valve seal that's on the top of the valve. And that design assists in when you're connecting and disconnecting under pressure, that you don't have blowout on that seal, or that seal does not become unseated. In the socket, you'll notice here that we have a seal that is actually bonded to the top of the valve that's used on the 3/4 inch size, and anything going into a CO2 type application commonly uses this 3/4 inch size. We also have the standard industry tubular guide that's used on the majority of the sizes, but the 3/4 inch size for CO2 has that hybrid valve design. So we've gone through really the 8 most common two-way quick disconnects. So now what, right? Where do I go? How do I apply? Give me some examples of what's going on here. And we'll go through some of these very quickly. I'm not going to read through all these, but for future reference, once you receive this presentation, again, you can go through them in more detail. But snow plow and salt sprays, for those of you that live in the part of the country that utilize these. quickly, preseason and at the end of the season, attachments, quickly assembly and disassemble. You can see here on the bottom picture, we have a metal plate that's used for the mounting of the quick disconnects, and that plate is pretty rusted. And then we have a couple of flat face couplings here that are zinc nickel plated, that they have a little bit of white rust on it, but you can see the front surfaces of them are still in pretty good shape. But flat face couplings used on snowplow applications. Commercial utility vehicles, they're used on the bucket side of it. They might be used to power some secondary hydraulic equipment that you might come in and quickly connect to it, but flat face size is used here. More attachments going on to construction equipment at the end of an excavator arm. Here's a hydraulic drill that's using some FHK series. Trench shoring, using the cylinders that actually support up both sides of the trench. This is a hydraulic hand pump that would have some hydraulic lines to it, and you would use the quick disconnects here on the hydraulic lines, as well as connecting to the cylinders that are using on the shoring up, and that's the FHK series. Commercial buses used in the washdown, as well as fluid transfer on the buses, FHK series again. You wouldn't think a commercial bus driving by you would have quick disconnects on it, but potential for it. Transfer of natural gas from a storage vessel to a burner. This particular application is at 60 PSI, moving natural gas. So FHK series here again. Steel mills, these guys love to standardize on one type of quick disconnect throughout the plant if they can, so they have common interchanges to it, but they also chew up and eat up a lot of their products just because of the harsh environments these are in. But hydraulics with moving the ladle, with processing the steel as it's coming off the line, but lots of FHK series being used in steel mills. Wheel loaders using a wing nut style. Connecting from the hydraulics on the cab to the trailer and the cylinder that's doing the work on a particular trailer. An example of a lift wheel loader. And the CO2 dispense that we've talked about. So you may or may not have noticed, if you go through a drive-through or you go to the back of a restaurant or a bar, that they might have a panel there with a stainless steel cover, and they have a quick disconnect underneath it. Well, that's used for bulk transfer of CO2 during or after hours. So a CO2 truck can pull up at any time, connect up a wing nut style, a 3/4 inch wing nut style, do the bulk transfer of CO2 and be on their way. Oil and gas, even though the price of oil is down, at some point it's going to come back, but just be aware that lots of connect under pressure, high pressure, screw to connect type couplings are used out there, flat face. You may see some FHK stuff out there too, but lots of quick disconnects in oil and gas and fracking. And similar to the steel mills, they take a lot of abuse and can be replaced quite often too. So we're going to do our last poll here, and I think this guy's more up a poll than on his last poll, but in any event, Courtney, if our poll is still working, if not, if you wouldn't mind reading that again, please.
It is up and running.
Great. So I see everybody's starting to vote in here, so go ahead and take a quick look at that, and hopefully you're getting the feel. I'm not trying to trick you up. I'm just trying to reinforce what we're talking about. So we got over 60%. Fantastic. Yep. So obviously Foster offers a complete line of couplings, ISO A, ISO B, flat face, screw to connect, variety of applications and markets that it goes into. So 100% true. Excellent. Thanks, Courtney. Go ahead and close out the poll.
It's close.
Okay, great. Thank you. And 1 second as this catches up. There we go. So how and where to sell. So kind of closing this out with the things to ask, where to go, how to talk to different buyers. Questions to ask your customer are going to be very similar to some of the other ideal Trident products that we offer, as well as other products you're selling throughout your organizations. What's the pressure of the application? Fluid compatibility, temperature is going to be very important in how we size out the types of material, whether it's brass, steel, stainless steel, and seal material is going to be most important. Basic question, what's the coupling size? Sleeve lock or ball lock, we had talked about that. Is there a need to physically restrict or have a safety feature on the coupling? The selling approach on the value add. If you're talking to a buyer, they view these a lot of times as basic commodities. They're looking to get something that's cheaper, the same thing but cheaper, without understanding the total cost. So our job in the sales side of things is to understand the simple operations. Try and get them to understand the value of a better product, of a lot of the features and benefits that we talked about today. Understanding that they're may or may not be willing to pay that slight premium for that product. Talking to end users that may view the couplings a little bit different and more of a critical part of their system, where we have more opportunity to sell that value. They understand the difficulties of the applications, the need to have a more robust product, things that have more features and benefits to it. So understanding the user side of it as well. So talking from the MRO side, a lot of times you'll just get a list out of a database. So we want to make sure we're searching that database for the sockets, the couplings, the quick disconnect words. And for all the time that I've been doing this and getting those lists, there always comes across a couple of QDs that somebody will say, oh, this one's important. Oh, this one's got to be this. So trying to identify those so we can value add, sell those particular parts, as well as those other items they may view as commodity type items. Identify usage and demand patterns. We can help support you as a distributor if we can know and understand if there's ups and downs in the demand cycle throughout the year with your customers. So help us understand that. And identify the waste factors. Low cost often means throwaway items. So if we can see how often they're throwing away QDs, how often they're just getting beat up and somebody thinks they're cheap, versus buying a premium product that'll last 2 to 3 times as long. For the solution side of it, some of the things we had already talked about: understanding the applications, the specifics, the media, the pressure, performance issues, how the product's being used, quantify the impact of that negative cost, and most importantly, get your ZSI Foster team involved. Let us help you support your end customer so we can help sell that value and both win that sale. So as some of the talking points here, our QD is part of the assembly of the MRO, and then go through the selling points and the value add points that we had just discussed. Understand who your buyer is. Understand if there's recent safety instances, accidental disconnects, sleeve lock an option, ergonomic concerns, current and ongoing QD issues that you walk past every day in the plant and somebody goes unnoticed, but if you can get on the shop floor and point that out to them, ask them how long it's been going on. Flow issues, premature failures, extreme temperatures. 5S is a big one. A lot of times 5S is under a different budget than normal production or MRO. If you can understand that a certain facility has 5S in there, many times you can sell on some of the safety features and get that approved and make sales there. Multiple manufacturers within a QD facility. With the product line offering and the breadth that we have, we can be a one-stop shop for your customers, and offering off as a package, not just QDs, but other ideal products, as well as what you guys bring to the table as distributors. So the quick disconnect markets, just kind of closing out here with the last few slides. As we talked about, they're everywhere. Anything that carries air and fluid can be broken down. Maintenance has the opportunity to have quick disconnects associated with them. Where do I sell them as a sales guy? Application assignments here. This is something we'll be emailing out to you, but this is broken down not just by the hydraulic quick disconnects, but the pneumatic ones as well, by market and by application in each specific market of where you can look for QD opportunities. So you get that crossover list. What do you do with that? We have a cross-reference list available to you. There's 24, 25 manufacturers on here. I've highlighted the major ones, but everybody on this list we do cross over to, so we can help you with that. And if you weren't aware, we currently have a flash sale going on with Campbell and Foster product. From the Foster product line, we have We have 6 different products that are on there. So if you have a need for some QDs in some of these product lines, reach out to your regional sales manager to get some more information on those. And the webinar topics. If you've been a part of some of our previous webinars, thanks for joining. They hopefully been helpful to you. We have more going on for the next couple of weeks. Reach out to me and we can get you some of that registration information too. And lastly, just to go over again the resources that are available, the training presentation, the cross-reference guide, and the application guide, all that'll be emailed to you as a follow-up to this presentation. Pricing, data sheets, catalogs, all available on our website and the library. And most importantly, talk to us live. We're here to support you in customer service. Regional sales managers are here to help support you out in the field. And when we need it, our application engineers to help us figure out those more difficult applications. So with that, I'd like to thank everybody for joining today, and we'll go ahead and get started with any of the questions that might have come across. So I believe Parrish was going to read some of those questions. So Parrish, if you wouldn't mind.
So to be clear, this is Dave. We have a connection issue with Parrish, so not to catch you off guard.
Gotcha.
So the first question has 3 parts. The Pioneer, does it come with a poppet style valve?
Yeah, the Pioneer is a ball valve. So
Correct.
it is not a poppet style. So the poppet style is typically referred to in the ISO A and the ISO B style couplings.
Yes. So now change to the Interpack. Do you offer a poppet style valve and a ball style valve?
Nope, the Interpack is just available in the ball style. That is the standard. I believe most everybody in the industry uses the ball style valve in there, but that is ball style and not poppet style.
Okay. And then the third part of this question is any suggestions, preference, or items to be aware in a ball style versus a poppet style valve?
Yep. So the ball style, as we talked about in the Pioneer series, can be a little bit more prone to leakage and weepage, meaning some of that fluid when disconnect in the socket and the plug or disconnect, you may see some weepage coming out of there. They're more prone to having some contamination get in between the ball, the ball check valve itself that causes some of that weepage. Now on the Interpack style, there's I'll call higher tolerance machining that occurs, and there's a coined seat associated with that ball valve that allows for a better metal to metal contact. So it's less likely or less prone for leakage and weepage than the Interpack style, or excuse me, than the Pioneer style.
Okay. Moving on to the next one. Can the ISO B profile be inadvertently connected with an ISO A profile? And just so you're aware, Brian, I'm using the ISO B and ISO A as an example. The question was, can the various connection types be inadvertently cross-connected?
Yep. Great. Thanks. Appreciate that clarification, Dave. No, they cannot. So, the features and the characteristics of the machining of the plugs make them unique in the fact that an ISO A would not connect to an ISO B. You may have some partial insertion that could potentially happen, but you'll have some type of mechanical restriction or something physically restricting the plug from fully entering that socket and causing it to connect and open the valves. And that's typical across all the product of the 2 ways that we talked about today.
Okay. Next one, I'm going to change the wording a bit as well, but the smallest size available for the wing nut style QD?
I believe that was 1/2 inch, correct?
So we advertise in the catalog 3/4, but we have done 1/2 inch.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Yeah. All right. The next question, and so I'm going to broaden this one as well, but the availability of British threads. And then it was specific to the ISO 16028, but thought this might be a good opportunity to expand it for the entire offering about British threads.
Yep. So we do have, depending on the quick disconnect series, we do have some British pipe thread available on it. Looking at the flat face version, typically come in an SAE. We do have some O-ring Boss seal available on it, but depending on the volume, we can certainly take a look at any of the British pipe thread across the different product lines.
Okay. Hopefully I'm understanding this question correctly, but can you use a female pioneer with a male poppet or vice versa? So I think.
Yep, go ahead.
Well, I apologize. I shouldn't have given you my interpretation. Let me read it to you again, Brian. Can you use a female pioneer with a male poppet or vice
So I guess the way I'm interpreting that is a female pioneer being the socket. Can you use that with a male poppet style valve being an ISO A or an ISO B?
Well, my interpretation was if it had the poppet the poppet style or needle style valve in one half and the ball in the other half valve,
Gotcha.
can you use them?
Yeah, most likely they're going to connect. The thing you have to be aware of is because they're two different styles of valves, they may not open up fully between the poppet style in the ball check valve style. So you may not be getting full flow through there, even though those valves are open. Most likely they're just going to be partially opened.
Yes, and they'll never allow me again to ask questions. So I'm going to add in my 2 cents. Is that you also have the concern of the needle valve will damage the ball. And so as it creates surface imperfections, there will be a leak path.
Oh, good point.
Another thing to keep in mind.
Good point. Thanks, Dave.
Yep. So here we go. Why would you use an ISO B versus an ISO A?
Yep, good question. And really, as you remember from some of the slides, the sizes of the ISO A versus the ISO B in the pressure ratings are very similar. A lot of it boils down to user preference. The ISO B series is definitely more prevalent here in the US. The ISO A is here. It's certainly not uncommon. You will definitely see it, but it's a little bit more common overseas. So maybe you'll see it on some equipment they might have come over from Europe and that type of thing. But really, it's customer preference that comes with ISO A and ISO B.
Okay. A few more here. Is a screw to connect or locking ball type better for high pressure?
Yep, good question. And really, it's application dependent. So, the screw to connect gives you some advantages for connecting and disconnecting under pressure, depending on what series you're using there. And there's certainly we do have some ball lockings that are used in high pressure as well. So depending on the application with vibration, hydraulic impulse, and a number of different factors, both could be, either or could be used in an application, or there could be some application differences that drive you more to screw to connect versus a locking ball, but both could be used. They're application dependent.
Okay. Do you offer a fluid guide for the two-way product line?
Yep, so we do have compatibility for seals. So really the seals are the thing that are driving the compatibility side of it. So not just with fluid, but also with temperatures of where they're at, but we do have those charts available. So we can add that to the list of things we follow up with you on the follow-up email.
Okay. 2 more, unless anything else comes in. But what temperatures can QDs be used in?
Yeah, and kind of piggybacking to that last question, it kind of goes to the seal. So obviously, you don't want to get to the melting point of brass and steel, and I don't think the QDs would be in those types of applications. But it's really driven by the seal. So the QDs can pretty much survive the high temperature applications. So you just need to make sure that if you're getting into something extremely caustic, if you're getting at a high temperature where Viton doesn't survive, and maybe we look at AFLAS, we look at different types of CalRes, it's really dependent on the seals and the QDs.
Yeah, good one there with the AFLAS. Yeah. Okay, last question. Why would you want to use a two-way style coupling without a valve?
Yeah, that's a great question to end it with here. So it really comes down to flow in pressure. So if you're doing a lot of fluid transfer at a higher pressure, you certainly would not want to use a pneumatic style type coupling without a valve in it. So you can order the sockets and plugs without valves in it, and then you can have your shutoff for your fluid, maybe with some ball valves up and downstream from where the quick disconnects are at. But you need the ability to connect and disconnect the line at certain parts with a piece of equipment or wherever the fluid transfer is happening. So even though they're two-way valves by name, or two-way quick disconnects by name, they don't necessarily have to have valves in both sides, and they may only just have one valve.
Yeah, that is it.
Well, great. Well, thanks again for everybody's attendance, and we will get some follow-up emails out to everybody that joined. And once again, thank you, and enjoy the weekend.